समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
This week's argument on national interest is about the disaster at Indigo Airlines, or what we are calling as the crime, quote unquote, crime of Indigo, the real crime of Indigo. We bring you editorial of very high quality. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can happily disagree with this argument of mine as well. Write me responses, we will also reply to you. But we are able to do it because so many of you take paid subscriptions for us. For a long time, I have not reminded you, but that's not because we don't need the money. In fact, if anything, we need more and more money because we have to expand and we have to keep the show going. And this can only happen if viewers, readers pay for the good editorial content that they use, that they consume. This especially goes out to our viewers and readers across the world. There are so many of you. What does it cost you? Just $10 a month. It's nothing. For $10 a month, you can contribute to sustaining a first class, even if I may say so, a first class, unhyphenated media organization. Good journalism is larger public good, and all of you have to contribute to it because all of you have a stake in it. That said, let me come back to my argument over Indigo. Now, there can be three immediate reactions when you see the unraveling of Indigo. Arguably, the greatest global brand built in post-reform India. All three reactions come with some frustration. The first, the Indigo founders and the management must be nuts, unthinking or arrogant, as some have argued, to have let their airline go into such a rapid meltdown. See this article by Mir Sharma on Bloomberg on your screens. He's the one who's calling this a result of arrogance. The second, that whoever thinks of taking on the government of India, and that too the Modi government, particularly when Vladimir Putin was in town, is smoking something illegal. Remember, those that allegedly triggered Shaheen Bagh protests while Donald Trump was visiting New Delhi in 2020 are still in jail without trial. And this as the holiday weeks were beginning. And third, for those who've argued for decades for the government to get out of our lives, especially in areas served better by the private sector, how reckless did you have to be to do exactly the reverse? That holier than cow, Mai Baap Sarkar is back to clean up the mess created by an arrogant, anti-customer private sector leader. This is a national tragedy. To invite the government back into this, you can quite believe that for all these years, as private aviation grew, took the jet and Kingfisher meltdowns in its stride, and Air India was privatized, many in the ancient regime chafed at the loss of power. No planes to buy, no largesse of hirings, contracts, even purchase of consumables. The government of India, or what in my more frustrating moments I have described as Sarkar-e-Hind, given its self-image, had been rendered irrelevant in at least one area, civil aviation. Here, the private sector built a globally envied success. Even in telecom, at least some vestiges of old power stay with the government. Spectrum sales, one active PSU in BSNL, and a 49% equity in Vodafone Idea. However it might have come. In civil aviation, it has nothing, barring that insignificant helicopter charter, Pavan Hans. Most of the significant airports are privately owned now, and many others will soon be. All new major airports that will be built will be private. Now the Sarkar is back, and how? The minister is strutting from one TV channel to another, promising to clean up the mess Indigo created, threatening to indirectly take over the management of a listed company still valued at around 2 lakh crore, up and down a bit, that is rupees 2 trillion or about $24 billion, despite a nearly 15% collapse in the wake of the crisis. This happens only in India. A private company messes up, but the guy explaining and taking questions is not the company's CEO, but the minister. The minister, however, threatened to have the CEO fired and had him summoned by the sector regulator for a highly publicized humiliation. He first withdrew in panic the regulations on pilots' duty hours that his own ministry and regulator had failed to enforce over nearly 2 years, and then ordered a cut in flights till February 2026. He is now thinking aloud and talking aloud. A duopoly is bad, he says, so his preference is to have 5 airlines instead with 100 aircraft each. Is he going to give Indigo or the entire Indian aviation? Because this airline, Indigo, is 2/3 of Indian aviation, its baby bells moment that harks back to the US antitrust process, breaking up AT&T's monopoly, telecom monopoly, into regional bell operating companies, RBOCs as these were called. The minister should have his staff Google that. Indian aviation looks big, but it has enormous headroom for growth. I'm tempted, in fact, to use the line, the sky isn't even the limit. Just Indigo has another 1,400 jets on order, Air India approximately 570, and another couple of hundred between Akasa Air and SpiceJet. How can we talk of wishing for 5 airlines with 100 planes each when India can absorb 5 with 500 planes each at least? The incredible Indian success story was made possible because the establishment for once accepted what Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been saying often, that the government has no business to be in business. Just as Indian aviation is growing at a global scale, the minister in charge is talking of cutting it into pieces. This when both his Prime Minister and his party Supremo Chandrababu Naidu are believers in scale. We might be losing our way, however, in venting too much over the poor minister. He was given what seemed to be an easy if glamorous ministry with very little to do except cutting ribbons. Then a crisis found him. So we leave him to his primetime fame and come back to the real issue, the return of the government into the very heart of one of India's most spectacular private sector success stories. How else can we describe the placing of officers in key positions in the Indigo corporate headquarters overseeing decisions? This is accountability-free micromanagement. They come from the same regulator, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation or DGCA, which first introduced rule for crew rest and recovery so conservative, so onerous, even the Europeans would balk. They did so without getting the stakeholders' buy-in, unless the idea was the old one. Any impossible regulations bring discretion and exceptions in their wake. That's how the Sarkar has built ATMs for itself through generations. So why not now? The success of private aviation made the case for minimum government. Civil aviation became the most expendable ministry. Why do you need a ministry? It should have been abolished without needing some Javier Milei of Argentina as Mr. McKinsey. The ministry should have gone and regulators should have been strengthened. The opposite has happened. There is much to blame Indigo for, but its greatest crime, and that is the crime we are talking about, its greatest crime is to have made the government appear as a savior in the face of furious public opinion. The same government that ran Air India and Indian Airlines as monopolies ran them into the ground and lived through multiple aircraft purchase scandals. Some of these still endure. Now it's back in your headquarters. The same government is back in your headquarters. Good luck. Just how did Indigo let things collapse and then hid in a bunker hoping it would dissipate? Which century are they living in? In the past, you could buy goodwill with most media through advertising, favors, freebies, largesse, generous Diwali gift hampers, and having breathless commercial hagiographies written about yourselves. But in the era of social media, where every abandoned passenger has a voice and each stranded bag an identity, don't blame misfortune. This is colossal incompetence and insensitivity. So bad, heads would have rolled even in the old PSU era Indian Airlines or Air India. Civil aviation ministers have lost their jobs for much less. Indigo leadership should have been out and speaking in contrition, laced with reassurance at the first sign of trouble. But why bother if the customer has nowhere else to go? You have a monopoly. And the ministry, of course, we have that base covered. They forgot that dealing with the government ultimately is like playing in a casino. However brilliant you may be, however deep your pockets, the house always wins. There is also a postscript to this column. One of those storied pilot strikes in the PSU era led Mother of Scindia resigning as the Civil Aviation Minister on 9 January 1993. To keep some air connectivity going, he had wet leased aircraft. One of these, a Russian/Central Asian aircraft, landed on top of another, taxiing at New Delhi in deep winter fog. Scindia took moral responsibility. A couple of days later, as I made a stop at Sitaram Kesari's home, as I sometimes did on my way back, it was on my way back home on Purana Kila Road in New Delhi, and I would often do it for a tutorial on Indian politics. He said that Scindia was very young, bright, popular and ambitious. Good candidate for Prime Minister, but will never make it. I asked him why. He said Scindia took moral responsibility for an accident and resigned. He should have followed it up with press conferences and interviews to leverage it, to cash in on his sacrificial martyrdom. I checked, Kesari said, and he had instead gone incommunicado on a silent vacation in the hills. This showed, Kesari said, that Scindia lacked the instinct for the top job. It's a different matter that history could never put Kesari's hypothesis to test, as fate intervened and Scindia died in a private plane crash on 30th September 2001.